Excellent. Good morning. It wasn't really that early this morning for students, was it? I'm obviously getting old. So my name's Amanda Whittaker, as I was just nicely introduced. I've been in the consulting sector for the entirety of my career. I've worked with a couple of the big four, which means that I've delivered projects and programs globally, majority of them in Europe, but I have luckily had South America, South Africa, various other interesting places, about all things customer. So where businesses want to go through customer-led transformations, those are the sort of things I do. Identifying capabilities, technologies, although I have to admit crypto and Bitcoin and blockchain explodes my brain. I'd stick to the more simple stuff. And developing operating models for people. So that means I can have teams of anything from 3 people to, I think my last one was 60 plus over, I think 5 countries, 3 languages and various time zones. So it does get quite interesting. So today I was asked to come and talk to you about the future of leadership, which is quite interesting. So in preparation for this, I did a little bit of reading. And I also went and asked my friends, and I reached out to sort of my wider network, and I wanted to get their views on how they see the future of leadership and what makes good and bad leadership from their experiences. And there were some common themes that came up about how we determine what an inspiring leader is. So has anyone heard of Herb Kelleher? So he was the CEO of Southwest Airlines. Unfortunately recently passed away. You've all heard of Richard Branson. You've all heard of Steve Jobs. Excellent. It's a good start. Right, so they're all inspiring. They're all innovative. They're all energetic. Will we all agree? And they all have totally different products. Well, they did until Branson got an airline company, but you know, he's broader than that. The point is, I need a clicker. Now I just need to make sure I click the right button, otherwise we'll all be messed up. I just turned it off. No, there we go. The point is, what they have in common is this. They have an absolute fixation on their vision, all 3 of them. They have an immovable dedication to their customers and a real, true, genuine loyalty to their staff. So they're all genuine. Now, Kelleher and Branson are absolutely renowned for doing crazy things. Kelleher used to get onto his aircraft to entertain his staff and his customers. Branson, we know, whether he's up in a balloon or trying to scream across the Atlantic, they do these things to entertain their customers, their staff, and actually the world at large. But Jobs is really different, or was. Very focused. It's very serious. Yet there is absolutely no question they were all inspiring and they were all completely engaging. So they're what I would describe as functional leaders. They're not so interested in being at the top of the pyramid. They're actually more interested in how they achieve goals as teams. So what are the traits of good leaders? How come some leaders get more engagement than others? So through my career, I have had good and bad leaders, and I shan't name names or go into the details. However, when I was working for those not so good leaders, it was really difficult, and I found it really difficult to put my finger on why I wasn't performing to my satisfaction or to theirs. You know, why I felt constrained, why I was unsure, why I was unwilling to take a risk. Now, I'm not a massive risk taker, I'll be honest, but the odd risk here and there, not a bad thing. So some would argue that was a personal issue. But my network stories all came back with the same things. And these are very successful people. They'd all been in the same positions, and it came down to this: micromanagement. When you micromanage people rather than understanding how they work, and understanding how they do their job, they don't feel trusted. If they're not trusted, they don't feel empowered. If they're not empowered, in the worst case scenario, they completely lose their capability to do their job. So leadership, however we do it, it matters. And we have to get engaged and productive people. So one of the things I do now is deliver courses on, not that you'd know because I'm actually having to use notes. I didn't properly engage the 6 Ps, and if anyone's not sure what the 6 Ps are, just ask me later. Some of that language isn't appropriate here. Right, so I deliver a mindset management course. And one of the things that we talk about at the beginning of that is we ask people, what are the traits, the characteristics they would identify in successful people and leaders? And I'm going to get the right button this time. What they come up with, invariably, is this list here. So what they're looking for is they say, leaders are courageous, they're brave. They'll take risks, they'll move forwards. They're confident, fair enough. They're positive. Now this one's actually quite important. You haven't potentially had this experience yet, but what we say to people a lot is when you walk in to an office as a leader, people kind of scan you like a barcode. So if I walk into an office with my shoulders slightly down and my head slightly down, people are going to look at me and go, something's wrong. And I guarantee what they're not going to say is, something's happening and I bet it's great. They're going to look at me and go, what the hell's going on? Now, one of the most successful leaders I know, he was a strategy director for a very big company, and people would just do anything for him. He sat in his car for 5 minutes before he went into the office every day to make sure he was properly up for the day. And it's not about going, shoulders back, head up, I'll walk in like, it's not about that. It has to be genuine. So positive was very important. Clarity. If you've got a boss that comes in and goes, okay, this is my goal, this is what I'm going to achieve, and I have no idea how to do it. Or he says, this is our goal, how are we going to achieve it? You all come up with something, and then he comes in the next week and go, I've changed the goal, we're going to do something different. It's not going to get people to come with him. Okay, so clarity is really important. Honesty, being objective. The next one's grateful, empathetic, respectful, giving recognition. You just heard, don't take credit for what your team have done. Give recognition. Be humble. We don't know everything and we never do. Understanding, communication, listening, these are absolutely vital. Having a perspective. When heads off and on feathers happen, you have to be able to put things in perspective. Otherwise, nobody thinks straight and nothing gets done. Cooperative, absolutely. That's back to that team working thing. Encouraging, yes. Compassionate, dependable, patient. And I'm sure that the speakers here have all been in situations where the chips are down, everything's hard, and if you lose your sense of humour, it all does go horribly wrong. I believe so too. So these are good human characteristics, yet somehow some people walk up to the office door, open that office door, and they drop half of these. Yeah? Nobody gets up in the morning, no leader enters the office every day going, I have the sole aim today of confusing my team, creating tension and annoyance and not getting the job done. Just doesn't happen. So be yourself, because it's the only person you can ever be. Well, unless you're, insert name of favourite actor here. So a friend of mine I was talking to last week said that she had a bit of a problem and she wanted some advice. Now, to give you a little bit of background, this is a reasonably small company, although highly profitable. It's part of a group. Now, as part of that group, the corporate structure had brought in an operations director to look at the business, establish profitability, and what they could operationally do more effectively. This is not unusual in the business world, and if it was, consultants would be out of work. So the problem that she had was she had an operations director who come in over her leadership team to tell them what they needed to do. And she had a team who had been digging out for years to create this profitable business, who felt like it was a personal attack on them. And she had to get them to a point that says, this isn't a personal attack, this is an opportunity to improve, to do some things better, whilst keeping an eye on what's important for our customers. So we did a little bit of digging. And the one thing that seemed to be the problem was connection had been missed. So just to explain, the operations director at corporate level had come in and gone, we're going to do some stuff. And everyone felt like they were being attacked. Now, if you were going to do that, what would be the best place to start? What's the first thing you would do? If somebody says, go and evaluate a business, work out what's going on in there, give me some ideas about how we can be operationally more effective. Where do you start? One way, we can look at the books. What else can we do? Yep. You can look at the management styles. Yep. Speak to the people that work there. They're running the business. They know the processes, they know the operations, and I absolutely guarantee they've got some stunningly good ideas about how they could do it better. They just don't have the authority to do it. So I'm not saying you have to, when you do this, you don't need to take on everything everyone suggests, but at least by listening, you can then acknowledge it and have discussions. Yeah? This is part of that being open. It's about that vulnerability that we were talking about earlier. So what actually happened was the operations director came in, so let's look at these traits. Was she courageous? Absolutely. These were substantive changes she was making. Was she confident? Yeah, pretty sure she was right. Was she positive? Yep, she was positive that was the way to go. Was she clear? Absolutely clear on what was going to be done. And was she honest? Yes, she was honest about what was going to be done. Was she objective? Only from her perspective. So what she ended up with was a leader of this smaller organisation going, I've got a completely disengaged team because this stuff's being done to them. How do I close the gap? So the result is we've got an operations director that's not trusted. We've got a senior leader in a smaller business that's kind of being disempowered. We're getting objections and blockers because she missed bringing the team with her. She missed the remaining traits. Whoopsie daisy. You see, that's what you get from juggling too many things in your hand, not lugging your speech. So was she grateful, empathetic, respectful? Did she give recognition? No, because she didn't have the conversations. Was she humble? Not really, because she didn't ask. She assumed she knew the answers. Was she understanding? Did she have perspective? Well, I'm not entirely sure you can if you don't communicate and listen. Encouraging? No. Compassionate? I refer you to the comment earlier. Dependable? Patient? I don't know, we'll have to watch this space. Sense of humour I can't comment on. We didn't discuss her personality traits. So, as leaders, we need to be careful about these traits. Yeah? In leadership positions, we need to consider all of these traits and how we apply them. And we need to genuinely lead. It comes down to your direct rather than lead. They're two very different things. So there's a researcher called Brené Brown. Has anyone heard of her? Very interesting. Does a lot of research on vulnerability, funnily enough. She talks about bringing your whole self to work with you. So let's have a look at that. Are you all aware that behaviour is infectious? Yeah? Okay. So if you smile at somebody, on second thoughts, if you're in London, try yawning, because otherwise they'll just think you're really weird. You get a response. However, if somebody smiles at you and it's kind of that forced smile, you perceive it, don't you? It doesn't quite reach their eyes. It just sort of happens around their mouth. So you don't smile in response. They don't get the automatic response, and the reason they don't is because you perceive it to be false. So if there is a disconnect between your behaviour and what you say, then people will disengage, and it will build a lack of trust. And trust is absolutely fundamental in leadership. So there's a great saying, I can't hear what you're saying because your actions are speaking too loudly. Keep that one in mind when you're thinking about leadership behaviours. So how does this help us? Well, this isn't about a personality blueprint. You know, we heard earlier about 3 people who are quite distinct personalities, yet they're all very effective and very inspiring leaders. And understanding who you are as an individual, the kind of person you are, and your personal style is the start place for working out who you are as a leader. So companies spend an inordinate amount of time talking about their values, determining their values. They don't just write their values, they write statements about their values so that they can understand how those values get bedded in to their organisations. Just making sure I haven't missed something. Oh, what the hell. So if companies spent that much time sitting thinking about these are our values and this is how we want our values to go through our culture and how we want people to behave, how many people here have had time to sit and think truly about their values? Got them written down? Clear on what they are? Excellent. Your values will shift as you go through life, let's say, and the priorities will change. But I would suggest you spend some very serious time thinking about what your personal values are and what's important to you, because every successful leader is very clear on what their values are, and they're very clear on where their boundaries are. Incidentally, it'll also help you identify the companies that you want to work for. So we're going to whip through the rest because I'm running out of time. Knowing your people. So my partner is a captain in the Royal Navy. And what he says is the worst thing you can ever write on somebody's report or an officer's report is they're not good with the men. I'm sure he means people, but you know. It is a career killer if that is ever written on your reports. So in old terms, we call it walking the floor. In military terms, it's called walking the teak. It's about getting to know your people. Now, I'm not talking about the ins and outs and details of their lives, but you do have to know your people. You have to know what interests them, what drives them, and have genuine interest and show some compassion. Look after your teams. The whole is stronger than the part. And once you do that, once you know them, you can then put the decisions where the information is. You're not directing, you're leading. And trust is absolutely key. So I went through a project very recently. It was all going just a touch pear-shaped. Tech teams came to me and went, that's it, we're on hold. Can't do anything, we're delayed. Would have had a massive impact on the business. So we all sat in the room. Guess what we did? We defined the problem. Once we had defined the problem, we then got all the technical experts back in the same place and said, right, where's the solution? There has to be a solution, and can't is not a word that's allowed in this room anymore. We found one. Now, I'm not saying it was the prettiest solution. It did need some finessing after the case, but the fact is that we delivered the outcome. We found the solution, and we delivered within our timelines because we did it. Now, I can't say whether or not I'm a good or a bad leader. That's for other people to decide. But the point is, leaders are not fallible. And fixed thinking will never, ever win. So we all get things wrong, but the successful ones are open-minded and they evolve and they learn. You know, there's a lovely, I can't remember, somebody said to me the other day, there's a time in everyone's life when they were learning what they do today. Yeah? And it's good to bear in mind. You're always learning something. So we judge leaders by what they do when things go wrong. And as leaders, we have to be true to ourselves. We have to protect our teams. We have to focus on the outcome. And we have to get rid of blaming and shaming. Blaming and shaming drags everyone down, personally and the team dynamic. So nobody gets thrown under the bus, and the buck stops here. So agile, this is agile with a big A, don't talk about failing, they talk about learning. We learned from that project, and in the broader contexts, I believe that good leaders don't talk about falling down, they talk about tripping up. You can't get it right all of the time. So you evaluate, you learn, and you ground. Sorry, I've got a couple of minutes to go. Quick one on trust. Trust is a two-way street. So if you're not trusted, nobody will ever be loyal to you. You have to have tough conversations. You have to be honest. You have to give productive feedback. No one gets up in the morning saying, I'm going to do a really crap job today. Good people in the wrong roles is a different thing. We have to understand, we have to use compassion, and we have to be open-minded. And invariably, that'll get you a good outcome for everyone. Right. Gossip in times of change, by the way, is an absolute culture killer. I'm just going to skip through that. So what we're talking about is leaders that lead from stature, not status. Okay? Stature is given to you. It's invisible. It's difficult to measure. It's unmistakable, though. And stature will come from goodwill, and goodwill comes from living those traits. Look at it like a bank account. The more you appear to the traits, the more credit you build, and the more discretionary effort you'll get from your people. Okay? I've had a partner that I worked with who I'd happily stay up into the early hours of the morning just to work with him. So you get willing cooperation. Status is completely reliant on your badge. So, okay, a leader, they're a facilitator. You lead from the center. You are there to remove blockers, to support, to listen, to understand. We don't lead from the front. We're not Batman anymore. Invariably, that doesn't work. So leaders empower, they support, they encourage, they develop, and they inspire. We're social beings, we're interdependent. We lead from the middle, we connect, we understand, and we use the traits of human beings. So what does it take to be as a good leader and a leader for the future? Always be yourself. Understand your own values, understand your own drivers. Show interest in your people, because they're the people that make it all work. Evolve. We are never done learning. Get rid of blame. Lead from a position of compassion and understanding. We all trip up. Doesn't mean you have to fall down. And put the decisions where the information is, because that's the way we get stuff done. But in the long run, leadership is a capability and a mindset. And it's the one thing that technology can't replace.